Before we begin this video contains spoilers for the entire story of the first Last of Us game, and so you have been warned. The Last of Us is easily one of my favorite fictional franchises of all time. It took what was at the time a stereotypical trope of both media and pop culture as a whole, and added its own pizzazz to it in order to differentiate itself from the hundreds of other zombie media that was encompassing the internet, especially at the height of its popularity within pop culture, with shows like The Walking Dead taking its center stage. I can understand that some may not have been too pleased to see that Naughty Dog, an extremely talented studio and those responsible for crafting the immaculate Uncharted franchise, would resort to something like a zombie-centric story in order to continue their plethora of developing games. But what Naughty Dog did with The Last of Us is something still out of the league of most video game developers even today. In terms of pure cinematic and narrative development, Naughty Dog still to this day almost has no rivals, with only Rockstar Games, when they step up to actually release a game for once, can step up to the magnitude of the stories told by Naughty Dog. But surely that's something that would be obvious, as a large part of the modern state of gaming in terms of displaying cinematic and narrative experiences that have the ability to rival even cinema is due to Naughty Dog's advent with it many years ago now. With Uncharted 2, Naughty Dog revealed to the entire industry that video games had the ability to create characters that were as compelling as the ones we see in films, and worlds that were so stunningly believable that the audience would fall in love with the entire centric notion of such a world. And when I played The Last of Us for the first time more than 2 years ago now, I was absolutely taken aback, even after playing more graphically impressive or technically stunning games like Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption 2 still is my favorite game of all time, but what lies so close to the point where some days I think it's better are The Last of Us games. And so thinking as to what I believe is one of the best endings in any video game or even fiction to be, The Last of Us surely presents itself. The Last of Us has such a beautifully haunting ending because of what it implies for humanity, but also the two-sided nature of it. I often watch others react to the ending, and the diversity as to either the happy or disgusted reaction of the audience is so wonderful to see. Naughty Dog's display of building Joel with a morality that was ambiguous in nature allowed the player's own connection to embodying him within the game would then define how the player felt when certain moments within the game were presented. Whether the player themselves was connected to the relationship between Joel and Ellie and Joel's motivations as a whole would directly define how you would think about the ending, and that made it so that Naughty Dog didn't try to force any certain reaction from you. The ending is one that can be so dissected and interpreted in so many ways that it's amazing to see the variety of video essays and topics on the subject, because everyone seems to have a different opinion or interpretation as to what the ending symbolizes and encapsulates. The core message of the ending itself, though, is one that I think can be universally agreed upon as to what Naughty Dog was trying to say with it, and that's how far would you, player, the person behind the screen, and the actions of Joel go in order to secure the safety and life of your loved ones. And this is further reverberated by the fact that we see every single interaction between Joel and Ellie. We see them develop as a father and daughter, where at the start it seemed that Joel was seemingly incapable of forming any relationship after Sarah's death. After his own daughter's death, he is a broken man, and he has a lack of empathy that makes him nothing more than a cold-blooded killer. But to what degree does this not remain the same by the end? Sure, Joel and Ellie form an unbreakable bond, and Joel truly begins to become connected to her. So when it's time for humanity to cure itself of the disease that it's been so plagued for so long, he prevents this for his own selfish will of not losing someone that he was so connected to. His fear of losing the people he loves due to his past experiences actually makes him irrational as to the consequences of his own actions. In his mind, only one thing runs within, and that's the mission of saving Ellie and preserving his own sanity and connection to her, while abandoning the goodwill and life of an entire species. He gives up the ability for humans to be saved in order to make sure that he no longer feels the void that comes with the pain associated with losing someone close to you. And in this, Naughty Dog subtly questions the player as to their actions within the game, whether their morality is one that is in line with who you're playing as, or rather you are disgusted at the actions Joel commits. But because you've seen the relationship between Joel and Ellie develop, it's almost as if that connection is one that you forged with Ellie rather than Joel, because within the instance of the game, you are Joel. You are the one that forged this relationship in the first place with with her, and so you feel connected to her in the exact same way Joel does. So when you run through that hospital, brutally killing anyone that comes into your path of fire, all for your selfish desire, you understand more than you would if you just watched a movie. You are Joel, and so you most likely want to do what he's doing. When you kill those doctors who plead with you to understand what the true implications of your actions are, all that flushes through your mind is the journey you went on with Ellie, and how these doctors are trying to take it all away from you, instead of reflecting on the deeper implications of what a cure could do for the future well-being of the human race. So when you're driving back to what you call home and looking around, thinking about your own actions, murdering Marlene and lying to Ellie, to you it all sounds reasonable, because it was for you to preserve this relationship that you had spent so long building, and one that you so desperately did not want to lose, even if it cost the sanity and redemption of the human race in its entirety. Swearing to Ellie that you told her the truth is sealing the fact that your ambition only comes from your own selfish desire to preserve this bond, and that you don't care about her own will or the will of humanity, rather your own sanity. It's this moral ambiguity of the ending, where on one hand it feels justified, where the ending of the game is you saving the one you love, but on the other hand, how far will you go in order to make sure that those close to you will always be kept safe? And is it really worth it in any dimension to risk the entire sanctity of an entire species in order for you to not feel lonely or not feel the dread you once did so many years ago? That's something only the player themselves can reflect on.